What is up, guys? It's the Football Take Slayer back again. This time I'm not slaying anybody's take. I'm just here to discuss Bryan Mbeumo to Manchester United. I covered it earlier on in the transfer window. I really enjoy Bryan Mbeumo as a player. So, firstly, I just want to get this out there because I know people are going to ask me. But yes, of course it is an overpay. He has 1 year left on his contract, and you just spent 70 mil getting him from Brentford when you are literally Manchester United, and you're getting nickel and dimed on every single add-on by a team like Brentford. So yes, before anyone asks me, is it an overpay? Of course, but not because Bryan Mbeumo isn't good, but more so because he has 1 year left on his contract. And I also just think as football fans, it shouldn't really be so focused on the financial aspect of these transfer signings. You just want the best players on your team, and that is what Bryan Mbeumo is. He is one of the best players in the Prem. Even in the right wing on goal scoring ability, he's one of the best players in the world right now. So this is a really good signing. So to focus on Mbeumo, I am really excited for Manchester United and their fans for the signing. I call Bryan Mbeumo basically Mo Salah light. He's not as good as Mo Salah, but goddamn, is he close? And boy, does he replicate the way Mo Salah plays and their actions. Both left-footed, both lethal finishers, both played the same role for their teams as being an outlet ball and an elite 1v1 threat on the counter, basically just a solo counter creator. They hoof the ball up forward to Bryan Mbeumo, and he, if he has the ability, can go on a counter solo and still score. So he is an elite shot creator. He has so many shot creating actions where he can turn one little touch, cutting in onto his left foot, into a goal. And that is what Manchester United need more of. This is such a great transfer for Manchester United because one of their main issues across the course of last season was the lack of goals being scored. I believe they were bottom 5 in the entire league in terms of goals scored, which is just unheard of for a team of this stature. They scored less goals than West Ham last year, who were struggling, had no striker. Antonio breaks his leg. Fulkrug doesn't even play half the year. They bring in Evan Ferguson. He barely even plays. They're just relying on Jared Bowen and just Souček for goals. And you scored less goals than that. And it's not like Manchester United didn't have decent attackers. You know, Garnacho was decent, and he is a talent. He's still very young. And Mason Mount is decent as well, and I know he was injured a lot for the last season. But both of those players lack the same thing, which is actual output. It's lovely watching Garnacho take on 2 defenders and drive the length of the field. But when it leads to him cutting on his right and blasting it over the bar, then all of that is for nothing. And Mbeumo might not take on 2 defenders, and he doesn't have the silkiest dribbling, but he is efficient, one shot creating action, and he will score you a goal. That is why he reminds me so much of Salah. They don't light the pitch on fire with flair and insane skills like other players do, but they do the most important part of the game at the highest level, and that is efficiently scoring goals. Another reason why this is such a great signing for Manchester United is just the work rate that Bryan Mbeumo brings. Ruben Amorim had problems with Rashford, mostly due to work rate and not tracking back, and just seeming like he doesn't even want to be out there when he's on the pitch, if I'm really honest. Which is why they targeted someone like Mbeumo, who puts in a hard shift every single game. He also has the capability of playing right wing back if it ever really comes down to it. Again, I don't think Ruben Amorim and Manchester United are signing Bryan Mbeumo with the thoughts of, oh, he might play right wing back at one point. But again, just having that versatility is something that is better than not having. And Mbeumo spent a lot of time at right wing back 2 seasons ago for Brentford due to injuries. And although that is definitely not his best position, again, you want your best players in their best positions. 2 seasons ago, Bryan Mbeumo did not score 20 goals, and that's because you didn't have your best players in their best positions. This season, you keep him up at right wing the entire season, and he scores 20 goals and he gets you 12 assists. That's why you keep your best players in their best positions as always. There shouldn't even be an exception to that rule. You want your best players in their best positions, and you should put other players who aren't as good out of position if you need to sacrifice anybody. But again, he could certainly still do a job there at right wing back, almost as like what Amad Diallo is doing. So that always is there. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they should do it, but that's there and it's nice to have. So now when we look at Manchester United, they have filled the most important parts of Amorim's system. They have Dorgu and Diallo for the wingback positions, and now they have Cunha and Mbeumo on the 2 attacking midfield positions. Those are the most important parts of that system, the wingbacks and the 2 attacking midfielders. So they basically just brought in 35 Premier League goals this transfer window into the team, with Cunha bringing in 15 and Bryan Mbeumo bringing in 20, which was much needed. So when I look at Manchester United, what do they need from here? Honestly, the most important thing they need is a 6 to pair in midfield with what I assume to be Bruno Fernandes, who is going to be playing a deeper role this season. They need an elite 6, more of a ball winner and more mobile than someone like Ugarte and Casemiro. And honestly, like, just the complete opposite of what they have and will probably start there with in Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie is more of like a silky ball progressor, which is like not the priority in that position in the system that Amorim is playing. That's why towards the end of the season, Kobbie Mainoo started playing more of an attacking midfielder, because he just in the 2 holding midfields that Ruben Amorim plays, that Manchester United has, it's just not really made for Kobbie Mainoo's skill set. He's a little bit smaller. He's not really big physically. He's not great getting into a tackle. He's more, again, on ball, silky. But again, that's not what you really need in that 6th position. And you're not going to play him over Bruno Fernandes, and you're now no longer going to play Bruno Fernandes at one of those 2 attacking mid spots, because you just signed Cunha and Mbeumo for those positions. So Bruno Fernandes is going to go a little bit deeper into midfield, and he needs somebody. Although Bruno Fernandes does have a really, really great work rate, he needs somebody paired in there with him that will be an anchor, that will sit in front of that back 3 and will break up play and just instantly. They need someone that's going to break up play and just instantly give the ball to either Bruno for him to find the correct pass, or just instantly give the ball out wide to one of their wingbacks and then start on the counter, start on their build-up. And they obviously need a striker as well, but like I said in previous videos, I don't think it is a priority for this coming season, and I think the market is terrible right now, and it would be worth waiting a year and revisiting that later. I actually have a video coming out tomorrow where I actually do discuss the thought process of signing a Nicholas Jackson for Manchester United, where Mark Goldberg just hates that idea, and I really don't know why. But if I really were Manchester United and you needed a striker, you needed to get one this summer, Ruben Amorim saying you need it, I would say Nicholas Jackson for 40 mil would be fine, or just bring in Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a free and just hope that Xerxes and Højlund can do enough, and so can Dominic Calvert-Lewin when he comes in. But obviously, the striker position's there, but I don't think they need to fill that right now. And I actually think their back 5 is fine, and nobody really needs to come into that department unless you're signing somebody that is just elite and world class and you have the money for it, which Manchester United don't. But the problem last year wasn't really their defense being overly terrible. It was more so their offense just being so bad. They have Yoro, Maguire, and Lissandro probably as the starting back 3, I'd assume, with Dorgu on the left, and then Amad Diallo or Diogo Dalot on the right. And then you have a good depth in De Ligt, Mazraoui. You still have Luke Shaw. You have Heaven, who had a really good showing last season for 3 or 4 games. So I think the depth is enough. And now I just kind of want to transition and focus a little bit on Brentford and how these transfers that they've been doing this season will impact their upcoming season, because I just really don't see many people discussing it. I think Brentford are really going to lack goal scoring and just the overall goal scoring threat, and I am genuinely worried for that. I think the thought process is we have Thiago, who was hurt all of last season. Hopefully we can keep Wissa, and we have Kevin Schade, who had a really great season. And basically, you start Thiago up front. You hope he can get you 15 goals. That's what you bought him for. You put Wissa out on the right. You keep Schade out on the left. And now you basically have just replaced Mbeumo with internally in your squad. But again, Thiago was hurt all of last season. We don't know anything really about him. We don't know if he will adapt to the Premier League. So I think you're taking a really big risk, but that is why I'm worried for them. There are also rumors that Newcastle might come in for Wissa, which they just cannot allow if they want to stay up. You cannot lose 40 goals and your captain in a transfer window and expect not to regress tremendously and have a hard time staying up. You can't let Mbeumo walk through the door, Wissa walk through the door. Those are your 40 goals. And then you also sold Norgard, your captain, to Arsenal. That is just too much when you're a team like Brentford. I see that they brought in Malambo, who's a tricky player, tricky like midfielder / winger, and he's young. But again, the goal scoring output isn't really there, which I understand he's young. But that instant impact is just going to pale in comparison to an Mbeumo. I don't think a player like that can just instantly come in and have the type of impact that an Mbeumo already has on your squad, being just such like a solidified Premier League proven player. I think Jordan Henderson is a decent signing on a free to take Norgard's place. Again, he doesn't have the power and the aerial ability Norgard has, but Henderson's still good and he could still do a job, especially on a free. They let Flecken go, but they brought in Calvert-Lewin, which I actually thought was really good business. Flecken's like 32. Calvert-Lewin is about 26. He's the backup for Liverpool, but when he would come in, he'd play really, really well. He was a really, really good backup, probably top 2 in the Prem. And then I also think bringing back Coyote and securing him from Fiorentina after the loan for that right back position is extremely important for them as well. He was a really good player for them. I'm assuming the game plan, again, like I said, is you hope Sade keeps progressing and can basically be that Mbeumo replacement in terms of output. And then Thiago should finally be healthy, and now you have him to pair with Wissa for a full season. Because when you think about it, if the new manager gets things right, losing those players like Mbeumo and Norgard is tough. But a starting 11 of, let's just envision it, Thiago up front, Sade on the left, Wissa on the right. That's the front 3. Damsgaard, Henderson, and Yarmouk in midfield. And then Coyote, Collins, Van de Berg, and Lewis Potter, or whoever else you want. If you want to throw Ayer in there at center back, you can. That should be more than enough to keep you in the Prem. And also, they now have $70 million to play with if they want to bring in maybe one more winger. And maybe one more creative spark in the midfield. I think Damsgaard played really well last season, but again, if someone gets hurt, a lot of their midfield are just like really, really non-creative players who are more just physically strong. I think you could still do with maybe one more creative player. Maybe they envision Fabio Carvalho to be that. I mean, they bought him. They paid a decent amount of money for him. He hasn't really done anything for them yet. Maybe they're hoping he can be that creative spark if Damsgaard were to get hurt, or if Damsgaard just needs to rest, or if he's just lacking form. But again, I think letting Mbeumo leave isn't the end of the world. If you let Mbeumo and Wissa leave, you're in a tremendous problem, and then staying in the Prem would be really hard. But if Wissa stays, that front 3 of Sade, Thiago, and Wissa, I think can score you enough goals, and I think the rest of the team is solid enough to stay in the Prem. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think about the Mbeumo transfer. Let me know what you guys think about Brentford, if they're going to go down, if they're going to stay up. Thank you.